They turned everything upside down. Jesus. They turned everything upside down. My God. Come down. They disrupted everything. You are one of them. You are one of them. This guy is one of them. They seized your phone. This guy is one of them. Okay, hold this guy. He's one of them. You guys were live. We're live here. We're live. See all of them, oh. See them, oh. See them here. See them, they scattered it, oh. See it, oh. They have scattered our polling units. Look at our ballot boxes. They don't meet. They can't. We need army presence here. We need. Stay. Oh, yeah, leave me for clothes. Who took my face cap? Is that my face cap? Did you see my face cap? It's black.
Oh, wait, the girl is
the girl?
Yes, offering.
Jesus! Look at our polling units. Look at what they've done. Look at what they've done. Today, not today. If justice does not prevail, I'm not going to agree. Today, not today. What? My fellow woman attacked me. I can't believe it. The whole world is seeing. They're not born away to see me for us. Oh God.
They should cancel Lagos State.
Oh God. Oh my God. I can't believe this. Jesus Christ. The military are here. Yes. Thank you. Come. I have them on video. Yes. We must vote. Nigeria must change. Yes. It's impossible. I recorded every single process from the beginning up until this point. Sorry? No. I can't go on live. I'm livid. I'm sick.
Let me say this. I am sick as fuck. But as sick as I am, I stood up and I went out there. Got there before 7. Where they told me to go is where I went. When I got there, eventually found out that I was sitting at the wrong polling unit. Like a few minutes walk down, a lady with a hijab took me down there. She was an agent, and I believe she was one of the APC agents standing in there during the process. But she was kind enough to take me to 021 polling unit, Osaka London 1. When I got there, there were 3 other people, and they had started writing names down. My name was the 4th name on there. This happened maybe about 7 o'clock. Like I said, I got there before 7. Anyways, we stayed there, and I'm there literally till 4 p.m. yesterday. 4 p.m., I had already voted. I casted my vote. If you check my post, you would see my timestamps on everything that was going on. But around 4 o'clock, my body could not really hold up anymore. And the humility side of things, if you're compassionate about yourself, your children, your neighbors, the people around you, if you have empathy, sympathy for people around you, even you yourself, I hope I don't stay here too long, because I don't know how to lie. And if I stay here too long, I will say some things that maybe I shouldn't say. A lot of you left your homes, sat in some place for over 2 months, and were paid literally peanuts Now, ṣé rántí ọjọ́ tí ẹ purọ́ mọ́ mi tẹ́ lọ korúkọ mi sínú group wèrè kan tẹ́ ń bú mi ń pé girl yẹn ní ìgbéraga ń pé tó bá wá ṣiṣẹ́ ní Yorùbá industry iye báyìí ló máa san iye báyìí ló máa san. Now I'm saying it on live. That one ẹ purọ́ mọ́ mi ni, I didn't say it. This one I'm saying it now. You guys fought yourself. Ẹ ń jàjà olórí burúkú pẹ̀lú ra yín. They paid you guys peanuts. I have a screenshot of someone who got 90,000 naira after wasting his damn life for 2 months campaigning for someone. 90,000 naira. Bí mo ṣe manage tó, bí mo ṣe jẹ́ single mother tó, 100,000 kò ń ṣe kankan fún mi láti fi ṣe àánú fún èèyàn. You were under the sun. You were receiving abuses, curses on top of your head. Lórí orí ẹ, lẹ́lẹ́dẹ̀ ẹ. And at the end of the day, 90,000 naira nìkan ló wọnú àpò ẹ. Ojú ò tì ẹ bí ó ṣe dàgbà tó. Mo dẹ̀ wá ṣọ́ pé ìdajì náà igbó ló fífa because nǹkan tó ń ṣe pẹ̀lú ayé ẹ nìyẹn. And anyone who knows me, you know I'm not scared of anyone. You come for me, I come for you. You see this internet thing, me, I don't do it all. Ma wa beja one-on-one ni. And tó bá fẹ́ drop me pẹ̀lú brand, feel free. Because this is me speaking up for my own life, for my children's future.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I truly appreciate you being here. This is the aftermath. We are going to be discussing the aftermath of the Nigerian election that took place on February 25th. I'm not sure how the audio for that clip that you just saw came out, but let me know in the chat if it came out okay. Otherwise, I'll replay it. But I wanted to talk about this because I think it's important that we have a conversation around what took place in the election. But more importantly, I want to spend my time talking about the way forward, the aftermath. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this, let me first of all start by saying this, that there are a lot of conversation around the election as it is right now that took place. There are quite a few conversation around people not being happy with the result of the election. So people are really frustrated at the way the election went down. Now, I wasn't surprised at the outcome of the election. I truly wasn't. If you've been following me my day ones, know that I predicted this last year in December. And I had a video that I made of it when I predicted the outcome of the election. I predicted that Bola Tinubu would win election and would be the president of Nigeria. And then I reposted that 4 or 5 days, I believe, before INEC announced the results of the election. So that's not something that was surprising and shocking to me. As a matter of fact, my team and I spent a significant amount of period in time last year in December, late last year, after I released that video that I predicted the outcome. We spent a significant amount of time really putting together what I want to talk to you guys about today, which is what you're going to expect from the Bola Tinubu administration. That's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the next 8 years, what Nigerians and what the country is going to evolve to. And I am going to also make more predictions based on the data we put together, based on the analysis that my team and I put together. And I want you guys to I want to discuss this because I don't want to spend too much time talking about what happened in the election. The election has already happened. It's done. Elections have consequences, which is a famous saying that was said by President Barack Obama, the former president of the United States. Elections have consequences. So regardless of who you voted for, you're going to have to live with the choices because elections have consequences. Now, what I don't want to do in this video is cast blames. I don't want to come come across as someone who is pointing blame, or who is upset at those that voted for Tinubu. That's not. You have the right to vote for who you want to vote for. It is your constitutional right. It is your civic duty. You have the right. It is the privilege that you have as a citizen of any country to vote. The number one power and the most power you have as a citizen of any country is your power to vote. And you want to exercise that. So I'm not here to call out the voters of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, or call out the voters of Atiku Abubakar or Peter Obi. You know, if you've been following me, I don't support any one of these candidates. You know, none of these candidates were that impressive to me. However, one stood out to me, which was Peter Obi. And I'll go into that. Why he stood out to me, why he, of all the other three candidates, to me, was a breath of fresh air. Now, he's a politician, like every other politician. But to me, he is one that stood out to me, and I'll go over that. But understand elections have consequences. So whoever you voted for is your choice and your right to do that. This is not the channel for me to beat you down the head. However, I will tell you that you're going to need to live with whatever decision you make. The decision to elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the next president of Nigeria is a decision that you're going to have to own, and you're going to have to live with the consequences, because elections have consequences. Now, let me also say this, okay, as it relates to President-elect Tinubu and his supporters. I'm going to give you my in-depth analysis as we have researched it, and I'm going to give it to you in this video in terms of what you expect in the next 8 years. We're going to use the current administration, the outgoing administration, which is the Buhari administration. We'll use that as a benchmark to predict the next 8 years. And I'll tell you why I'm using that later on. But here's what I want to talk to you guys about that everyone is talking about. And as you're coming in, please make sure you're hitting the like button, okay? As you're coming in here, just hit the like button. And if you want to join the show later on, make sure you click the link, because I would imagine what I'm going to go over today, there are going to be those that won't agree with my take on it, and that's fine. So I want those that disagree with me, I want them to call in. I want them to click the link, come in, and tell me why I'm wrong. I did it, the last video I did on this, there were quite a few people that disagree with my outcome, even though I was right the entire time. So if they're here, please click the link and just come talk to me about how you're feeling and all of that good stuff. Now I want to say this regarding what's going on right now, because everyone is fixated and focused on the fact that people are going to court on this. You know, there's all this talk about people going to court, and the court is going to overturn the election and the mandate. Peter Obi would finally win the election. The court will see all of the foul play that was done on this, and then they will overturn the election. Here's what I'm going to say about that. And to those of you that are hoping that the court will do this, your Supreme Court, the Supreme Court or the High Court of Nigeria isn't going to overturn the election. The election that we just had, the Supreme Court isn't going to overturn that. And I would also venture out to say that Peter Obi and those that are going to the courts for some kind of justice done there, it's not going to happen. Your Supreme Court isn't going to overturn this election. Here's why I say that. First of all, your Supreme Court has no power. The Supreme Court in Nigeria has no power. they've demonstrated that they report to the the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That's your Supreme Court. They have no power, which is different from what you would normally see with most Supreme Courts. Most Supreme Courts are the highest court of the land. They are the highest authority of the land. They don't report to presidents. They don't report to head of states. They are appointed by presidents, but they don't report to presidents of any country. Supreme Courts in countries that have them report to the law. They don't report to the president. However, the Nigerian Supreme Court, based on the structure and based on some of the corruption that go on in that country, seem to report to the president of Nigeria. And so they have no power. Here's why I say they have no power. Last year, the Supreme Court ordered the release of a gentleman named Nnamdi Kanu. Now, regardless of what you think about this individual, is irrelevant at this point, to the point I'm about to make. This individual, for those that may not know him, is the leader of the hip-hop movement, the indigenous people of Biafra. These are people that are voicing their displeasure at their being marginalized. And so this individual represents that people. Now, I don't support his methodology. I agree that the Igbos in that country are marginalized. To say that they aren't is you would be the part of the problem. But I believe that they are being marginalized. But the way that Nnamdi Kanu goes about doing it with the entire, movement, I don't agree with that. However, that's irrelevant. The point of this is that the Supreme Court ordered the release of this gentleman last year. Guess where he's at? He is still in prison. The federal government ignored that whole order. They ignored it. And that, to me, is an indication that your Supreme Court doesn't have any power. They have no highest authority in the land, in that country, that they can make a decree like that, and the federal government can ignore it and say, no, we're not gonna uphold it. That, to me, is ridiculous, because Supreme Courts in any land are the highest authority, and they usually are the fail-safe in any country. The Supreme Court is usually the fail-safe. That means what that essentially is, when all else fails, they are there to make sure that the country doesn't burn. They are there to prevent insurgency. They are there to ensure that you don't have a president who flouts the law and says that he's not going to leave and becomes a dictator. So that the Supreme Court in most countries, in a democratic country, are there to ensure that doesn't happen. They are fail-safe. But when you have a Supreme Court that does not have power and the federal government doesn't really adhere to what they say, that's why I know that the situation right now with the court isn't going to work for Peter Obi and his. So they're not going to overturn the election. You're going to have to accept the election. As hard as that is, you're going to have to accept the election. To not accept the election is to somehow promote insurgency and perhaps create a type of bad situation. You're going to have to accept the election. Elections have consequences. There are always going to be losers and winners in an election. It happens in every country, right? It happens in every country. Now, this election was marred by a lot of corruption. We saw full clips. I showed you the clips early on in this beginning of the stream of what we've all come to see in terms of, certain polling unit, INEC, not showing up on time. Could that have been done on purpose? Perhaps. and having people come by and disrupting the civic duties of citizens wanting to exercise their civic duty and wanting to vote peacefully and disrupting that. As well as INEC's refusal to upload in real time results and votings as they came in, and the delay of that, not to mention the delay of announcing who the president was, all of that a couple of days later. Those are things that smell fishy, and they smell of foul play. Now, it is going to be incredibly hard for Peter Obi or Abubakar to prove to the Supreme Court. First of all, they're not going to overturn it. They're not. But it's going to be incredibly hard for them to prove that the election was rigged. We know it was. We know it was. Now, the burden of proof is on these two people for them to prove to be able to do it. They'll have to be able to prove two things: that there was a widespread foul play, right? They have to show a lot of videos and a lot of things to demonstrate that. They have to prove that. It's not going to be the one or few things that we saw. It's going to have to be overwhelming. They have to prove that. So the burden of proof is on them. Secondly, they're going to have to prove intent. You're going to have to prove intent, that INEC intended or had the intention to defraud or rig this election. And that's going to be very incredibly hard to prove. So these two things are going to be incredibly hard for him and to be able to prove before the Supreme Court. And even if by chance he does prove that, as I mentioned earlier on, your Supreme Court has no power to overturn this election. Even though they decree and say this election needs to be redo, what that's going to do is going to cause a panic, and it's going to cause an insurgency if they did that. And most Supreme Court, their mandate is to prevent these types of things from happening. So it's something that they are going to have to accept. You're going to have to accept the election result. Yes, it's a corrupt system. But you're going to have to accept the election result. But here's the bigger question here. Here's the bigger question. Is what really happened on that day? Was it INEC that defrauded and rigged the election? Or were it Nigerians and the system in which they have enabled and they have taken part of for years? I'm talking about the corrupt system that they have been part of. Was that what stole this election? Okay, I would say it's the latter. If you're going to be honest with yourself, I would say the latter. The election was stolen based by the corrupt system that Nigerians unfortunately have fueled for years. And that is the unfortunate part. Corruption stole this election from you. Yes, INEC rigged it, but INEC, based on its corrupt practices that most Nigerians have benefited from, most Nigerians have enabled, these are the things that sold the election. And so I want to discuss today the way forward. I want to discuss today how and the chances that Nigerians have in the future. Because right now, I will tell you, the fight that Peter Obi is having right now is a waste of time. The fight that Peter Obi is embarking on in terms of the court is a waste of time. He's been in politics long enough to know that he's not going to get the outcome that he's looking for. He's been in it long enough. He knows. There's no way you can tell me that Peter Obi and Atiku Abubakar, there's no way you can tell me that they believe that going to court is going to give them the favorable outcome they're looking for, or have the election overturned, or have a redo. He knows that that's not going to happen. He knows that. So why is he doing it? Because what he's doing right now is a waste of time. Now, I will tell you that Peter Obi right here has an incredible amount of opportunity right now. He has an incredible amount of opportunity. And I'm going to talk about it in this video. What he's doing right now is not it. But I will talk about the incredible amount of opportunity that both he and Showere both have. And I point these two out because I've listened to these two on the campaign trail. I know what these two stand for. I know what where their heart is. They have an incredible amount of opportunity. Having the election overturned or doing a redo, all that is not it. You're not gonna have it. It's not gonna happen. So I don't know why Peter B is wasting his time doing that. Now, could it be that he's doing it because he wants to not look like he was defeated, and he wants his supporters to know that he put in the fight all the way to the end? That could be one reason, right? That could be one reason. So his supporters don't say he just gave up too easily. That could be one reason. Could he also be that because he knows that most of his supporters, not all of them, maybe I shouldn't say most, but a lot of his supporters, that he has grassroots individuals with not an advanced level of education. And so they'll believe whatever he says. Well, they'll believe when he says that we're going to go to court and we're going to fight this and we're going to have it overturned. They'll believe that. Now, any educated and intelligent person that has been following this, that has been analyzing these type of things will know that there's no way you're going to overturn. There's no way that's going to happen. It'll cause more harm to the country than what you guys are experiencing right now. It'll cause your country to really burn. If you want to burn your country, go ahead and overturn that election, and you see what happened. I'm not happy at the outcome of the election. Trust me, I'm not happy about it. But for you to keep peace in your country, which is what you're going to need to do, for you to have your country be able to move forward and live to fight another day, you're going to need to accept the election result. Okay, you're going to need to accept it. And then re-strategize for the next election. However, what you need to strategize for your next election, that I believe Peter Obi needs to be spending his time focused on, is war against corruption. I believe that's what Peter Obi needs to be focusing his time. He has an incredible amount of opportunity right now. He could be the most powerful man in Africa if he's able to harness what I'm about to tell you right now. Peter Obi, the reason, here's why I supported him in terms of he was out of all the three candidates, why I leaned towards him. He was the only one man that was able to galvanize and excite the youth of that country. He excited people in that country as well as people outside of the country, people in the diaspora. We haven't seen anyone do that in a long time. We haven't seen anyone inspire anyone that much in a long time. He was the only one in a long time to do that. And what that does, not to say that he would have gone in there and changed the country, because the problem of that country are so big and so large that one man isn't going to be able to change that. But his presidency would have set the country on a trajectory. Given, hopefully, what I mean on the trajectory is it would have begun to make people see Nigeria differently. But it will have to take subsequent presidents after that to continue the work to build that country or get a country where it needs to be. He alone will not be able to do it. We're talking about insecurity issues. We're talking about poor GDP growth rate. We're talking about purchasing power, human capital, purchasing power parity. We're talking about, these types of things. We're talking about investment in technology that would help to improve the agriculture sector and help to improve the labor market. These things cost money. These things take time. These things take intention to do. We're talking about the poor electricity infrastructure. These are insurmountable problems, huge problem that one man can do. But I believe his presidency would have given the country a new facelift. And certainly the fact that he had that many people supporting him and excited about his presidency, what that does, it gives hope to the hopeless. And when you have people with hope, it inspires some type of productivity, some type of buy-in. And that would have moved the trajectory of the country differently. Now, that's why I leaned towards him. Because of that. Right? Now, the opportunity that he has right now, if you ask me, what he should be spending his time focused on right now would be to look at his people in the face. Because right now he has not conceded. He needs to go ahead and concede, and he needs to accept the election result, but fight a different battle. Here's what Peter B should do. If I was part of his crisis management team or his PR team, this is what I would advise him. I say, let's go ahead and accept this election, but let's fight a different fight. Here's the fight that we need to fight. I would come in and I would talk to his supporters and say, hey, listen, we were robbed of this election. We were denied of this election. Corruption denied us this election. This election was rigged by INEC. It was rigged by the status quo. It was rigged by those who would like to see this country remain the way it is. But I want you to join me today to help to change this country. I want us to say no to corruption. The corruption that we know has been a fabric of this country for years. I want us to say no to it. I want you to join me to protest against corrupt practices, to protest against the system of corruption, to protest against that type of thing that has been occurring in this country for years, that cost us the election of 2023. I'm telling you, if he did that and galvanized his people to peacefully protest every day, or as often as possible, to say we do no longer want corrupt regime, we don't want corruption in our country, I guarantee you Peter Obi will become the most important man in our history. He will gain the attention of Time magazine. He will gain the attention of New York Times. He will gain the attention and the support of international communities that will walk and fight with you on this fight. Now, that is the only thing that I think would make him the icon and the legend. Right? He would change, because right now what he's doing is not going to do it. And I've heard a few other channels talk about how international communities need to come and help, and they need to look at this, and they're calling out for, international bodies to come and intervene. Dude, they're not going to do that. The international body isn't going to intervene. They're not going to intervene in your electoral process. It's your process. You wanted independence, they gave you that. They're not going to come. Nigeria is a sovereign country. They're not going to come in and overturn your election. They're not going to come in and mandate your president to do that. They're not going to do it. It is not their job. They'll comment and say, hey, just like we've heard, the United States commented. We've heard other international bodies comment. They will come, but they're not going to overturn or ask. They're not going to interfere in your election process. It's not their business. Now, some will argue that they always interfere, but point I'm saying is that they're not going to officially come out and do that. That is not their fight. However, the fight that they will fight for you is they see Nigerians every day, the youth that Peter Obi has been able to galvanize, that listen to him. He re-strategized and changes his message to be war against corruption. You know the type of war against indiscipline that Buhari did back in the 70s? Remember that? Yeah, the same useless president that we currently have right now. Remember back when he was the head of state and was in the military regime and he had war against indiscipline, and people look back at that time and say, oh, corruption was almost never existent back then, even though it did exist. But that type of war against corruption would be the type of movement that will get people all over the world join you with. You have people here protesting. You have people in London protest for you. You have people in India protest for you, because everyone knows that that country is plagued with corruption. If you did that and he became the leader of war against corruption movement, where you're protesting against a system of corruption peacefully, not the type that you're destroying your country or all of that stuff, none of that, I guarantee you Peter Obi and Sowore would be the two most important people in our history. I mean, when I mean history, I'm talking about the history of Nigeria. That is the only fight and the only play here. That's your only play. You're not going to get anything out of it. Because right now, I'm going to give the data I'm about to show you today. The information I'm going to give to you today is one I think is important for you all to look at. See, I'm moving beyond what everybody else is talking about. Everybody else is talking about the court and all of that, and you're not going to get what you're looking for there. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. And no international country is going to empathize with you. They don't care about what's going on in Africa. Most of them would like to see you fall apart. Most of them would like to see, the country really kind of deteriorate. Most countries, because they stand to gain. And a lot of them probably are happy that you have a corrupt president right now who is compromised. And so they're happy about that. So they're not going to join you on this. They're not going to join that. However, their citizens are going to fight this fight for you if you fought the right fight. Their citizens are going to join you in that. But anything other than that is just a waste of time. You're not going to get anybody. Nobody's going to care. So anyway, so I want to talk about the next 8 years. I want to talk about the next 8 years. Now, here's the reality of what you're looking at. The next 8 years is going to be the darkest for Nigeria. I suppose, just like the title of this is. It's going to be the darkest. Now, the key KPIs that I want to look at, and I want to look at certain factors that to use to make the point that I'm talking about right now. We're going to talk about the inflation, the state of the currency. We're going to talk about the purchasing power of every individual in Nigeria. We're going to talk about the security in Nigeria as relates to Boko Haram and all of that. We're going to talk about these things. These things are factors that we're going to look at the current situation where Nigeria is today, and we'll project out into the future. And I'm going to go into an article that we published almost 2 weeks ago. And I'm going to read the article that we published on our website. You can always go and find the article on corporatejunky.com. And we're going to use that to discuss this. Because I will tell you, it is not good. It's dark days are coming up in the future. And if you've been watching me, my day ones will know this, that I am not in the business of really speaking negatively about the country or my peoples. And I'm still not in the business of doing that. My platform has primarily been a platform for really uplifting Nigerians all over the world and really sort of shining a positive light to the people. However, I am a very objective type of person. And I try to be credible in all things. Doesn't mean I'm perfect, but I try to be credible. And if you're hearing me, if you're one of my day ones, you know that I don't say things unless I've researched it, I've thought about it, I have looked into the matter. So what I'm about to tell you right now today, and I will tell you this, is that the next 8 years for Nigeria will be the worst for the country since 1999. Okay. And this is not being negative. This is basically looking at the current administration and the incoming administration, their history. And here's why I'm saying that. Bola Ahmed Tinubu is from the APC party. Okay. The current administration is also an APC party. Most parties in every country, whether it's Nigeria and the United States, they all think alike. They have the same value system. That's one thing that, if you know anything about political parties, especially if they're major political parties, they have the same ideology. They think the same way, which is why most major parties would fight to put their candidates in, because they advance the agenda of the party. Okay. So what you're going to expect from the incoming administration is going to be exactly what you got from the old administration, the current administration right now, because they come from the same party. That's one. Secondly, it's a Muslim ticket. Okay. Not to say anything bad about religion. Muslim religion is a beautiful religion. That is not the point I'm not trying to make here. But what I'm making is that the current administration empathized and shielded a non-terrorist group called Boko Haram. Okay. This is a problem for Nigeria. This is a problem for the perception of the country. This is a problem for what the country stands for in terms of their positioning with the world stage. Boko Haram and terrorist group Boko Haram have built camps and have found a home in Nigeria. This is bad for the country. So the current administration has shielded this terrorist organization, and they have expanded under this administration. Now, with Tinubu coming in place, with Tinubu, there's reason to believe that he's going to equally do the exact same thing to protect this terrorist group, as well as either expand it. There's reasons to believe that. That is a problem for not just the presidency, but it's a problem for the country. Because when you're talking about international platform like the United States and the West, their biggest enemy is this group, amongst many others. And so that is a huge issue that you need to realize. You need to understand this. If you live in that country, and even if you don't live in that country, you need to understand this. It is a big problem for your country. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the perception of your current president. You see, your current president, whether you believe it or not, whether you believe what I say on my platform or blog, is irrelevant. See, the truth is the truth. Whether you don't agree and you have the people that say it's not going to happen and is they lie, it doesn't matter. The idea, there's what's called the truth, fact, and what's called perception. Okay, here in the United States, most people operate under the perception, and perception in the United States many times is gospel. It's even more gospel than the truth. So you can sit up here and say it's not fact, but when people perceive a certain thing enough, it becomes gospel in this country. And I think it's the way most countries operate. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he will never, hear what I'm about to tell you right now, he will never be invited into the White House. The incoming president, the president-elect, the one you guys voted for, will never be invited into the White House. I would even doubt he would even sit or even be invited by a prime minister in England, in London. I can guarantee you that that's not going to happen. Here's why. His involvement, his alleged involvement in drug trafficking, the stuff that I've talked about on this program, the stuff that most of you who are probably subscribed to me somehow don't like, whether you like it or not, it's irrelevant. Doesn't matter. We've got German papers now calling, look at the headline we had last week from a German paper. A drug baron has now become the president of the largest population country in Africa. You think they care about what you think is fact or no fact? These people know what facts are. You think they care about the fact that you think is not true? They don't care. That type of cloud isn't going to have Bola Ahmed Tinubu invited into the White House in the United States. Now, you might look at it and say, we don't care. Yeah, sure. That's what Venezuela said. That's what Venezuela said. That's what Cuba said. That's what all these countries said. Look at where they are right now. Yeah, we don't care. Sure. That type of attitude is what's going to make you fall off the map. So now, your international presence. Again, you can vote for whoever you want to vote for. Elections have consequences. Here are the consequences. I'm going to lay them out to you. So you understand that when you're voting for a candidate, you're not just voting for him to represent you in your country. You're voting for a candidate or a president to represent you also on world stage. Because international bodies need to be able to trade with you. You need that for your GDP. You need that for your purchasing power. You need that for the growth of your country. So if you can sell your goods to other country and it be bought with a fair price and fair trade, if you can travel and have investors come to your country, you just might as well be Cuba and be like North Korea, all of these countries that have been isolated. You might as well just be that, because that's exactly where you're headed. That's where you're going. Okay. So let me get back to the point. He will never be invited to the White House. Why do I say that? That allegation is a known documentation in U.S. history. It's in there in the IRS database. His involvement in drug trafficking back in 1987, all the way through 1993, that whole process, I covered it on this channel. All of that is documentation, even which in the court in Chicago that really kind of dealt with the case. That is a known thing. So here's what's going to happen. Before you get into the White House in the United States, understand that everybody gets a background check. Everyone is under a background check that goes to the White House. Staff, visitors, president, everyone goes through an extensive background check. We're not talking about the type of background check where they just find out what happened in the last 2-3 years. No, we're talking about your entire life. You go through a background check before you work at the White House. Anything that looks funny, you're not going to the White House. The press goes through a background check and they go through constant background check. Now, Bola Tinubu, if he ever comes to the White House, no sitting U.S. president is going to ruin his reputation for a African or any president. It's not going to happen. Biden is not going to invite. Bola Tinubu will never see the White House. We'll never see that whole. At least Buhari was able to go to the White House, during the Trump administration. You remember when he was at the Rose Garden with President Trump, and this is the period in time where President Trump called African countries shithole countries. You remember that, right? And he sat right next to the guy, and they were giving out press conference, and they asked him, "Hey, this guy right here called your country a shithole country. Now that you have the opportunity to address him, what do you say to President Trump?" You remember that? Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember that. And then he folded like a slug. It's like, I didn't hear that. That type of thing. At least he was right there in the Rose Garden. He was invited to the Rose Garden. Bola Tinubu will never. Because what happens is that most Americans don't know about this guy. They don't, When he starts to look like he's going to show up at the White House, if that happens, which will never, then you have the media and the press asking, who is Tinubu? Who is Bola Ahmed Tinubu? And they, CNN is going to find facts about him. Fox News, they're going to look at stuff about him. MSNBC, all this, we're going to dissect it. And they're going to find out this allegation that we're talking about. That's not something that's going to fly. Because the American people never in the history of the United States that I know of that they've allowed a ex-drug dealer to show up and shake hands with their president. They're not going to let it happen. They're not going to let it happen. Okay. So he's going to get, the much he's going to get in terms of communicating with the United States president is going to be a phone call. You get one of those. How you doing? We want to congratulate you. You look at what even happened with this when he won the election. You can tell that he's going to be snubbed. Your president, the one you vote, is going to be snubbed by international body. Look at what they're saying. Look at what the president. Look at the statement that was released on the I think is the .gov, the government website. I have to remember what it is. In terms of the election, they recognize this election was flawed and was marred. They made this statement. This election was flawed, was marred with they didn't use the word corruption, but was not conducted with the highest integrity. That is the tone that they have, or the president you just voted, is bad enough that the country has had that type of stigma on it. This was your opportunity to change everything. And you did not. Now that's that. Now, what is the implication for those that are coming to this country? Here's your implication. You're not going to come. They're going to stop and halt or delay significantly your coming to this country. Because right now, understand that when INEC announced that at 4 a.m. in the morning, the day they announced it, every agency in England, in the United States, the immigration, they all know that you're going to be trying to halt out of that country. They know that you're going to be trying to, the Japa thing. As it stands right now, the visa processing of every person coming from Nigeria into this country has really significantly reduced. The processing for that has been delayed, largely because most of the processing going on right now are for those from Ukraine. The Ukrainians are the priority right now. So the NCIC or the immigration body is focused on the Ukrainian citizen. That's who their priority is right now. So you don't even, that's why most of you, if you've been trying to process your loved one coming in here, there's a significant delay on that. Think about what's going to happen in the next 8 years. They're going to halt that. Not to mention the perception that you're harboring Boko Haram, which we're going to talk about. And you're now going to become known, just like Nigeria will be synonymous to a terrorist country, kind of like how Afghanistan was and have always been in this country. It's not good. So while you voted for who you voted for, understand what is at stake for you and your loved ones, your children, and for the country. Understand that you're going to have to accept the consequences because elections have consequences. Understand, because a lot of you, I will tell you, most people were upset. Here's my belief. Here's what I know, and I said in my video. When people were saying that INEC, people point to INEC, the improprieties that happened during election day, not uploading the result live on real time. They point to that as the election fraud. Yes, that's part of it. They point to the fact that many of the officials did not show up on time to the units. Yes, that's part of it. Here's really what happened. If you're going to be honest with yourself, let me tell you, none of those things those are impels in comparison. Here's what really happened. Bola Ahmed Tinubu paid people, and the same people that got excited for Peter Obi or the other guy took money to sell their votes. That is a reality. You can count. You can count. They can do the recount, and the numbers will still be the numbers. People that supported Peter Obi, you're going to have to understand this. People that supported him took money from Bola Ahmed Tinubu to switch their vote. That's really what happened. That's the story here. So the idea of going to court and all of that, it's a waste of time. Because what this told me is that Nigeria is split between Nigerians who do not want the country to change as a result of voting for this guy. Because understand that when you voted for this guy, you're basically voting for the same old status quo. You are the problem. You are the same problem. The people that want the corruption to stay. They want the type of leadership that you've gotten. You are the problem. Get upset all you want. Don't give a shit. And then you have the other ones who voted for Peter Obi. Now, why I believe these other group are looking for change is because he, of all the other candidates, was the only one that had a diverse electorate. You mean there were people from the north that overwhelmingly supported this guy. There were people from the southeast, people from the west. I mean, the guy won Lagos State, for God's sakes. Think about that. So people that supported him didn't cast their vote because of tribe or on some kind of, we're only going to go for the guy that's from my local tribe. They didn't cast it on that. They cast and they voted based on who they believe will change this country. So you have those set of people looking for change. And you have the ones that wanted the status quo. So there's a divide. So you have people that bought, that aligned with these group, sold their vote for a temporary bag of rice, bread, yam, whatever the hell you think that money was going to do for you. The money's going to be gone. You heard the clip I made, the first clip at the beginning of the stream, where people took 90,000 naira to sell their vote. What is 90,000 naira going to do for you in terms of the future of your country? And then you'll cry in a year from now that your country is where it is. But you will never admit that you voted. You sold your vote to a person who is status quo. So elections have consequences. You're going to have to live with that. Okay, so I don't want to waste my time on that. Okay? I want to spend my time on what you need to look forward to. So let's get into this. Let's get into this. Because I've got quite a few things to cover. If you can, please hit the like button. You know, hit the like button. And if you are watching this on the replay, hit the like button. You know, my channel is a unique channel. I don't get involved with the dog and pony show. You know, I don't get involved in all of that. I talk about facts and reality. Now, some people don't like to hear the truth, and that's fine. Go watch something else. But if you want, most people that stick around and are subscribed to me are subscribed because they know that when they come here, they're not going to just hear fluff. They're going to hear what's real. I'm going to give it to you what's real. Now, it's up to you if you can handle it. It's up to you. I'm going to give it to you what's real. Right? And you can make a decision of that. So let's go into this. Okay. And while I'm pulling this up, you know, if you ever decide that you want to come in and make your case for a while, I mean, if you're brave enough to tell the world that you voted for Tinubu, I mean, if you voted for him, you voted for him. Don't be just own up to it. What I can't stand are cowards. You see, I respect people that at least can defend their rights, and maybe you can tell me something I don't know. Okay, you can tell me something I don't know, but don't be a coward. I've had cowards leave comments on my on one of my videos. There was this particular guy. Hold on a second. I'm about to make him popular. Okay, I'm about to make this guy popular. Let me pull him up. I can't stand cowards. I can't. If there's anything that really bites me, it's someone that can't defend their position. So you don't have the right to leave stuff on my comment section. If you can't defend your position, then don't leave it right there. Don't leave it. Because if I call you out and you start to tell me that you got to go feed the goat, which is an excuse for why you can't come and defend your reason, your position, I'm just gonna block you because you're leaving spam. My channel is to educate people. Right? It's to educate people. And so I have to be very careful what I put out there and what people put on my comment. Of course, I can't control the comment section. People can put whatever you want to put, but if you're gonna put something in there, make sure you defend it. You know? Hold on a second. All right. Sorry, I'm back. Okay. So, Here's this video I did.
They turned everything upside down.
Not that. Here's the video I did. Yeah, so here's the video I did about this. Yeah, let me give you guys this. Okay, here we go. Hopefully you guys can see that. All right, so I cover this, and then you have this guy right here. Whoever this guy is, Chief K. So of course he disagreed with my my analysis, and that's fine. You can disagree with me, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Now here's what I said. I'm not going to read his stuff. I said, listen, join my upcoming live show and tell me why I'm wrong on this. Because apparently this video was, this was a repost of the of what I posted last year. So it was a repost. I just posted this not so long ago, 13 days ago. This was like a couple of days before the election was announced. So he tells me I'm wrong, and I'm not going to read all of this stuff because a lot of them don't even make sense in terms of sentence grammatical errors. It's just all over the place. But the point of what he was saying is that I was wrong with this. And I said, okay, sure, come and tell me. And then he goes on to talk about he's busy. He's, here's what is it? Hold on a second. Where is it? Yeah, of course he deleted that. Right? Yeah, right here. It goes on and on. I don't know if I'll get a chance. Right? So that's that whole cop out. Don't know if you're going to get a chance. I just asked you to come up and defend your point. Now you got to give me all these excuses why you don't know if you're going to get a chance. You might go to feed the goats. You're busy, all of that stuff. You see, that's a cop out. And I called him a coward because that's what he is. Right here. Right there. So be quiet. You're a coward. I have more respect for someone who can defend their position. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you and I, we won't necessarily agree on things, right? We're not going to necessarily agree on things. That's okay. That's okay. That's what makes it perfect. It's because we learn from each other. We learn from each other. We don't have to agree, and that's fine. But defend your position, for God's sakes. Defend your position. Tell me what it is that you're saying that I'm wrong, because you can type it in the comment section. Okay? So if you're going to type it in my comment section, you should be able to say it. So my audience can learn from you, because that's the point. Because when I have people come up, like I said right now, click on the link and come up if you want to talk. It's not to embarrass you. It's so that way you can teach us something that we don't know. Like maybe there's something I'm missing here. Maybe something I didn't see. More importantly, you can educate my audience and my subscribers and people that watch me. And we have a good conversation. But don't sit up and cap out and tell me that you got to go feed the goat. You can't make it. I don't know if you have a chance or all of that stuff. That's just being a coward. And I can't stand people like that. So don't leave it on my comment section, because when I call you out and you do, I'm just going to block you. I'm going to find your name. I'm just going to take you out. Go away. Right? And then you have this other guy. Hold on a second. The same video. At least he had more sense. And I can tell that he's one of my regulars. I can tell he's someone that's watched me for a while, because the way he addresses me is what I would expect. And he tells me that, this gentleman right here, and I have respect for him. Right? I mean, this is very lengthy, and I read all of it, but the net of it was, he talked about how he appreciates my analysis and all of that, and you guys can go watch and, if you just pick the video, you can go watch it and read this stuff. He says, bro, your calculation and feelings are on point. Tinubu is the embodiment of evil that plagues Nigeria. It is not just vote buying, it is also vote suppression, intimidation with his thugs snatching ballot boxes. So, and then he talks about where he disagrees with me, and that's okay. Now, he disagrees with me in terms of when I said Tinubu was going to be the next president. He didn't agree with that. He thinks that, and he believed that there's no way he's going to be the president. And of course, now we know that he's been announced, but that is okay. That is quite okay. He can disagree, and I appreciate his position. Those are the type of people I like. Disagree with me. That's okay. But don't be like this other coward right here. This guy right here. You can tell that I put a thumbs down in this video, like this guy's a coward. And then you have those people. You have those types of people that will that would do that. But anyway, that's so here's what I want to spend my time on. So if you go to corporatejunky.com, you'll be able to see these publications. So you guys try to get some merch. Let me talk about my merch for a second. Make sure you get your merch. We got merch here. We got white people wearing our stuff. Go into Afrobeat, Afrobeat, get your merch. Got really nice designs out here. Make sure you go and get one. All right. Let me get back here real quick. Let's be serious. All right. So if you click on this, you'll be able to see this article. You'll be able to go in there and read the whole thing. It's an 8-minute article. It took me and my team time to put this together. So take the time out to read it. Because you'll like it. But anyway, so here I'm going to give you some highlights of this. And I'm going to talk about this real quick because I want to have a conversation about this. Now, it's titled Nigeria's Economy in Free Fall. A look at the last 8 years. So we just published we published it on March 3rd. But we've been working on this since last year. So it took a while to put this together. So go in there and read it, because I'm going to give you some breakdown. Yeah. So here, let's get into it. So it says, Bola Tinubu from the APC Progressive Party has been announced as the winner of Nigeria's presidential election, securing a victory for the ruling party in the country with the highest population in Africa. This was the last as the official results that were given. So he got 8 million votes, which is kind of weird, because I think that the country with over 200 million people, okay, if you take away children and those that don't have PVC, you should have more than 8 million in terms of votes, but that's neither here or there. And Atiku has a 6.7 million basically, and then Peter B 6 million votes. So I think Peter B did incredibly well for being from a very small party to go up against a two major party. I think that was okay. Anyway, you can read all of these yourself, and it even goes into the at the time, you had Peter Obi and his running mate, presenting and saying that they're going to go to court and all of that. So we wrote that against that. Here's what I want to say: a look at the last 8 years, because I think that's what when I started this video, I talked about how the next 8 years are going to be a mirror of this current last 8 years that have happened. So if you hated Nigeria, if you thought Nigeria really fell off the cliff this last 8 years, there's a lot worse coming up. Okay. So it goes on. The Buhari administration, which has been in power for the last 8 years, has been criticized for its handling of the economy. The administration has faced challenges such as corruption, insecurity, and lack of investment in critical sectors. These issues have contributed to the decline of Nigeria's economy over the years. Over the past 8 years, Nigeria's economy has experienced a downward trend due to a variety of contributing factors. Okay. Our analysis delves deeper into Nigeria's deteriorating economy condition from 2015 to 2022. So that's when he took power. So that's the period we looked at. We looked at 2015 to last year. Okay. Of course, the new president will be sworn in May 29th. But we were able to, that period in time is a sufficient amount of information that we gathered, and the extensive research we did was during that period in time. Essentially, this is 8 years administration. I mean, seriously. While examining records of the outgoing Buhari administration, I'm right here, and the causes of the decline, specifically with focus on the challenges associated with a significant decrease in the value of the naira, the volatile GDP growth rate, high inflation, and deteriorating security situation. Okay, those are the three. This is the main part that we're going to focus on. These challenges have had far-reaching implications for Nigeria's economy and the well-being of the citizens, posing significant obstacles for individuals and businesses operating within the country. Since Buhari took office in 2015, the Nigerian currency, the naira, has experienced a significant decline against the US dollar and other major currencies. Between 2015 and 2022, the naira lost over 100% of its value against the US dollar, from an exchange rate of around 197 naira per dollar in 2015. That's what he inherited. Buhari inherited a currency that was 197 naira to the dollar when he came into power. Okay. Now to around 502 naira per dollar in 2022. So the man took the naira and the purchasing power and the strength of the naira back then. And many would argue even back then it wasn't that great, but it's a lot better where we are right now, right? So you took it from 197 naira to a dollar, and you devalued that currency to where it's now. We're talking about central bank. This is the value for central bank. We're not talking about black market. Okay, we're talking about central bank. Okay, it's 502 naira to a dollar. Okay, the following table compares the decline of the naira against the US dollar and other top African countries' currency in terms of their currency strength, using the exchange rate at the end of each year. The decline of the value of the naira is largely due to various factors, including a drop in oil prices, which accounts for 90% of Nigerians' exchange earning. See, while Nigeria is still facing, in many countries, this is why you know that the country isn't moving and propelling forward. It's not forward thinking, because many oil producing countries are moving away from oil, because that's not going to last. And the country and globalization is changing. Robotics, automation are the new thing, and they have been for the last 10 years. The acceleration of this is going to happen in the next 8 years. Oil and all of that is not going to be the country is not going to be able to survive off that. Not to mention it's going to run out. I mean, Nigeria experiences a large amount of spill each year from its delta areas of oil spill. Okay, but imagine a country with that much oil spill every year, having 90% of its economy based off of oil. Okay, you tell that you're on your other side. This is mostly why I also really resonated with Peter Obi's message, because his message was all about moving Nigeria from consumption to production. That resonated with me. Okay, that resonated because that's what's going to get you out of this. That's what's going to get you out of it. You need to become a producing country. Okay, we'll get into that. All right, let me read that again. The decline of the value of the naira is largely due to various factors, including a drop in oil prices, which accounts for 90% of Nigerians' foreign exchange earnings, weak fiscal policies, and a significant increase in inflation, which is another reason. The decline has also had significant implications for Nigeria's economy, making it more expensive for businesses and individuals to import goods and services, leading to a reduction in purchasing power and putting pressure on oil reserve. So here's what Nigeria. So we matched the naira against the dollar as well as against other countries that most of you, other top countries in Africa. So we went from year by year. So in 2015, the naira was 197, which is what he inherited. He inherited $107 naira to a dollar. That same period in time, against the naira against all this other currency, Kenya, Ghana, Egypt. This is what those figures are. In 2016, it went to $315. Okay. And you can see the increase year after year. So where we got to 502. That's where that's what your current administration and the incoming administration is likely going to do. This is my prediction. I predict that by the 8-year administration, by the time this 8-year, the incoming president's administration is done, this number in 2030, right? It's going to be 1,000 naira central bank now. We're not talking about black market. It's going to be close to 1,000 naira to $1. That's what. So when you're looking at projection, you need to look at where we were at. Okay? And then you need to look at the incoming president. What is their value and what are they bringing in that is likely going to bring this number or halt the deflation or devaluation of that naira? The answer is not yet, because when I listen to Tinubu on the campaign trail, nothing about investing in technology that is going to help to improve this, nothing towards investing in AI, nothing towards moving away from oil reserves and oil dependency to much more into like the agriculture and technology. None of those such of things are, which is what you're going to need to improve your naira. So Nigeria is probably going to inflate out. That's what's probably going to happen. Okay, so in 2030, by the time this administration, when I mean this administration, I'm talking about Tinubu is going to do 4 years. He's not going to go all the way 8. His vice president is likely going to complete the next 8 years and get reelected. That's what you're looking at. So you're going to see APC. Well, let me talk to you guys for a second on this part. Okay, let me explain what I just said. Okay, real quickly, and then we'll get back to it. APC is going to be the ruling party in the next 12 years. Okay? So you get how I got there. Okay. So historically, when you look at the elections that have occurred and presidents that have been elected in Nigeria, usually the incumbent president that doesn't finish, his vice president takes over and usually gets reelected. That's usually what happens. So my prediction is that, of course, Tinubu is old. He's not going to, like 85 or something. He's not going to finish his term. He's not going to finish out. He probably wouldn't even finish out for a term because he's too old. And I think he knows this. I think what they're doing is, what happened in this election is one man paying a debt to another man. That's what happened. Okay, is Buhari paying a debt to Bola Ahmed Tinubu. This is what happened. Is all boys high-fiving each other. Tinubu has said it that he got Buhari into that office, which is why he made that statement. It is my turn. Because it's a conversation that old buddies had and say, hey, if I put you in there, make sure you got me in there next time. That's exactly what you're looking at. So, that's exactly what you're looking at. So anyway, he's not going to finish, probably not going to finish the 4th term. But let's say he finishes 4th term. His vice president is going to finish out the 8th term. That's what's going to happen. And he's going to get reelected for another 4 years. That's what's going to happen. Okay. So, let me get back to this. All right, if you can't see it, let me blow this up so that we can see it. Okay. All right. So that's where we are in terms of the currency right now in 2022, 502. Okay. Now, prior to Buhari's administration in 2015, the Nigerian naira had experienced a relatively stable exchange rate. The operative word here is stable exchange rate against the dollar prior to 2015. Now, the table below here shows the exchange rate of the naira against the US dollar from 2011 to 2015. So this is where we are at. Okay, in 2011, the naira to a dollar was 150 naira to a dollar. Okay, now, please, excuse me, bear with me, because I know that that's not even great either. Okay, I remember that period in time. That wasn't that great either. But compared to where we are, you can kind of see how horrible the naira fell in terms of the purchasing power of its citizens, as well as the value based on inflation and based on lack of technology, based on lack of GDP growth. Nigeria has the highest GDP growth of all African countries. However, relative to the population, your GDP per capita is low compared to other African countries. And the way you achieve GDP per capita is basically you take your GDP growth for that year and divide it by the population of the country. That's how you find out what your GDP per capita is. Nigeria's GDP per capita deteriorate each year, which affects the purchasing power of each citizen in that country. Okay, so 2011 is 150 naira to a dollar. Okay, 2012 157, 2013 161. You can kind of see it was relatively stable. Okay, it wasn't a jump as what you're seeing right here from 2015 to 2016 at $315. That's a huge jump. Okay, so that's what you inherited. That's where we were at. As shown above, the 2011 to 2015, the naira appreciated against the US, even at one point, US dollar, with a steady increase in its value. This period was characterized by relatively stable political and economic condition, with Nigeria experiencing steady economic growth and political stability. That was the period in time. However, the trend changed after Buhari administration took office in 2015, and the naira began a steep decline against the dollar. The comparison between the exchange rate before and after the Buhari administration reveals a significant contrast in the naira's performance. This indicates that various economic and political factors under the Buhari administration led to a sharp decline in the naira's value. The impact of this decline has been felt by Nigerians, with high inflation, decreased purchasing power, and an increase in cost of living. Talk about your GDP growth. Okay, now GDP is basically the goods and services produced, is gross domestic product. It's basically your goods and services produced in the country within a particular period in time. That's your GDP growth. So there's factors that economists look at when they're talking about GDP growth. There's the factor they look at the GDP, they look at purchasing power parity, they look at nominal GDP. These are things that economists look like to see the health of the country. That means how strong is your purchasing power, right? What does your purchasing power look like? So this affects people that are even sending money back home. Okay, as I mentioned, the way GDP is calculated is basically you take the way per capita GDP per capita is calculated. You take the GDP produced for that country, you divide it by the population. Nigeria is over 200 and something million. And they tell you what the GDP per capita is. That means how much did each person's contribution to the GDP? What does that look like? Okay, so that's this figure right here. So we're going to look at this table right here. Okay, so the Nigeria's GDP has been volatile during Buhari's presidency. In 2015, the GDP growth rate was 2.7%, and by 2016, it had dropped by 1.6%. Mainly due to the country's first recession in over 2 decades. Since then, Nigeria's economy has been a slow recovery path, with a GDP of 0.8% in 2017, 1.9% in 2018, 2.2% in 2019, and a negative 1.8% in 2020. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic and the decline of oil prices had played a significant role in the recent decline of the GDP growth. The decline in GDP has significantly impacted the purchasing power of Nigerians. With low economic growth, many Nigerians have lost their jobs. Okay, I believe the unemployment rate in that country is like what? Almost 30%, which is unheard of. I think 40% of the population in that country are in abject poverty, not just below the poverty line. This is abject poverty. That is bad, and it got worse under this administration. Okay. And those who still have jobs have seen their real wages decline. Inflation has been high, with the rate reaching 18.3% in 2021. We're in 2023 right now. That number is higher at the time we looked at this, making it harder for Nigerians to afford basic goods and services. Additionally, the depreciation of the naira has also made imported goods more expensive, further reducing the purchasing power of Nigeria. Consequently, the purchasing power of Nigerians have been heavily impacted by the country's declining GDP per capita and nominal GDP. That is what you need to look at. Okay. Over the past 8 years, the GDP per capita measures the economic output. Okay, so I wanted to give you a definition of that, so that way you know what the difference between a GDP per capita and a nominal GDP is. GDP per capita measures the economic output of a country's per person, while nominal GDP measures the total economic output of a country in current prices without adjusting for inflation. Okay, so that's very important. What is the GDP without adjusting for inflation? Because inflation per year is a factor that you have to take account of. If you need to know the value of your currency, you need to know where is your currency going to be in the next 2 years. You need to adjust for inflation. Okay. In Nigeria, both GDP per capita and nominal GDP have been on a steady decline since 2015, since Buhari's administration. So if those of you, please hit the like button. If you're in here, hit the like button, man. Hit the like button. So that's the number you need to look. You need to see, because it's one thing to look at to see where your country, and most of you that are in Nigeria feel this. Okay, you feel this every day because that's your life. You live it every day. But then a lot of us in the diaspora that send money home, we also know the declining factor, especially a lot of us that are investors also. So if you're an investor, this is a problem for you. If you're an investor in Nigeria, this is a problem for you. Because essentially what that is that the value of the money you send home every year to your loved ones. So that value is declining. So essentially, if you're sending $500 a month to your loved ones every so often, your $500 a month that you're sending to your loved one, that same purchasing power of that $500 is going to yield half of what it gets in the next coming years. So if they were able to, if you were sending that on a monthly basis, you need to send that now on a bi-monthly basis. That's what you're going to need to do. Because what you're going to start experiencing, what your loved ones are going to start telling you, is that the money is not able to buy for them what it used to buy. And that's what you're talking about, inflation and decline of your currency. So that's on that front. And then you have on the other front, investors. So if you're in the United States or in the diaspora and you take $30,000 of your US dollar, once it leaves the shores of the United States, it's lost and goes to Nigeria. It's lost the value of that, because you take that money, you buy a house over there. You invest in real estate. I want to paint a picture. You invest in real estate. You buy one of those homes. Okay? You're not going to get in return back the exact same $30,000 or $40,000 you put in. Even if you sold it back to yourself, you're not going to get it back. Okay? Because you got to factor in inflation into that. You're not going to get it back. Maybe you get it back if you did the legal black market thing. So your $40,000 is not going to be $40,000 out. Is going to be $40,000 back in. You're not going to get that money back. But even if you kept the money in that country and you built a house and you put someone in there, first of all, you have to put someone that can pay the rent, but that's fine. But the whole point of investment is so that way you can have money returning to you, or money to survive, or invest in other things. The value of the money you'll get from whatever rental property you get, convert it back to the dollar, isn't going to yield you the same value as what you took out. That's what you're looking at here. It's been that way for years, but it's going to get worse. So some of you might say, "Oh, this is good news," because I know some people might think, people that can't reason this stuff out, they'll say, "Great, now $500 can get me a lot more naira." No, yeah, that's not how you look at that. That's not how you look at that. It's if you're thinking that way, I hope you didn't go to college. I hope you're not one that went to college. Because if you went to college and you're thinking that way, then I have to question where you got your degree from. Because that's not how that works. Okay, you want the value of your dollar, especially when it's being converted back. You want it to come close to what the value was when you took it out. Because that's how you essentially, that's where your profit margin, that's exactly how you can tell that you can invest. That's why most investors would ever invest in Nigeria. That's why a lot of people are not going to do that. Because returning the money back is not the same as you took it over there. So you're breaking even if you did it. It's not. Okay. Let me go. Let me finish up. Let me go. Okay. So now look at the GDP per capita. Now, when I measured Nigeria's GDP per capita, when we did against all these other countries, look at how strong most of these other countries were. I mean, let's not look at these countries. These countries. Again, relative to their population. Okay, this is relative to their population because Nigeria is 230 million now. larger than South Africa, but look at what the GDP per capita is, right? So that's stronger. Look at Kenya. Okay, so Nigeria's GDP is at 1,682 dollars, and look at where Kenya is, and that's alarming. Okay, look where Ghana is. Okay, so again, remember where I talked about GDP per capita, where you're dividing the total GDP produced by that country by the population. That's why you get this number. I mean, these are not impressive number with Kenya and Ghana either. They're not. But relative to, Nigeria, you can kind of see where that is. All right. The decline of the Nigerian GDP per capita and nominal GDP growth during the Buhari administration can be attributed to a range of factors, including a lack of diversification in the economy. Yes, because he never invested in anything that would get this down. He never invested in technology. We never saw. Look at the technology that the supposed technology that INEC had invested in. Look at the garbage. Look at that. There was even technology that they invested in that to monitor oil theft in Nigeria, and that technology it has a lot of issues with it. But technology to harness a lot of the agriculture, the producing power of that country, technology into improving electricity, producing those efficiency, those mechanical devices to help improve your productivity, none of those things were invested in. So how are you supposed to export what you're producing? So you imported a lot of the things. Nigerians imported a lot of goods more than they exported things because they didn't invest in productivity. They didn't invest in those things. So that's why your dollar your naira is declining and is not. So the president coming in, wherever that person is, those are your reality. And I didn't hear that on his campaign trail. I didn't hear him talk about we're going to invest in technology. We're going to help. That was not what his messaging was. Peter B's message was that. That was what he was talking about the entire time. Because he understands these things. He understands this. Because that's how you're going to improve your economy. Okay. Let me keep going here. So here's additionally, the administration's policies and actions have also contributed to the decline, such as strict foreign exchange control, high inflation rate, inconsistent policy on trade and investment. These factors have led to a significant reduction in Nigerians' purchasing power, making it more challenging for individuals and businesses to operate in the country. That is the fact. If countries don't feel that you have a good tax incentive, that's usually what businesses are looking for. They want to see tax break, right? They want to see the inflation tackled. I mean, right now in the United States, Jerome Powell, Fed chairman, he hasn't been able to sleep. Even though people call him the printer of money, he filled the economy, the U.S. economy, with printed money, and now they're trying to pull this money out, right? Because that's what's causing the inflation. Because back in during the pandemic, they flooded, the money that people were getting, unemployment check. They flooded the money, the economy with money to kind of boost the economy when people were not working. And so now that devalued the currency, and that's caused the inflation to rise. So they want to suck out that new money that was printed, because it was said that new money were printed in the United States during 2020 than have ever been printed in years within the country. So they're trying to suck that whole new money that was printed out, which is why they're increasing the inflation is the way it is, which is why they're increasing the interest rate by basis points. So you hear 0.5% basis point, you hear 0.25, 0.75% basis point. They're going to be meeting on the 23rd of this month, another meeting. So the talk is that, are they going to go 0.5? Are they going to go 5% basis point? Are they going to do 0.2, 0.75 basis point? We don't know. But he's tackling that. And based on his last meeting a few months ago, he wants unemployment to rise. The only way they know they can tackle this is to increase unemployment, to be able to bring down the inflation, and that is affecting mortgage rates. Mortgage rate in the United States right now is at 6.25%. Okay, my home right now, the home that I'm living in today, when we built this house, we closed at 2.83. We built the house from the ground up. We were one of those few lucky ones that bought in at the right time. We built it in 2021. It took us 9 months to build this house, and we locked in at 2.83. Unheard of. 2.83 interest rate. And this house today, the value of the house have gone up. Good for me. However, if I were to buy this house today, I would be paying 4 times what I'm paying. No, for 3 times what I'm paying in my mortgage rate right now, because of interest rate. And so each time the Fed increases interest rate, it affects everything, which is why you're finding inflation is a problem. Okay, but U.S. is dealing with a 4%, 6% inflation rate. Nigeria is dealing with like a 25% inflation rate. Just think about it for a second. Okay, so it's a huge problem. Inflation is something you have to control that. You have to control it. You want to have a level of inflation because it strengthens your currency, but you don't want to have too much inflation. You don't want to have it too much. Because then that's increases. So you have to have a balance. You have to strike a balance on that. And that's what the Fed chairman is doing right now. They're trying to do that. But because of that money that was poured into the economy during the 2020, a lot of people relied on savings. It was spending money. Government was just giving out checks. It was all of that stuff. And so now people are burned through their savings and they don't have any money. So many of you now that are Nigerians that are sending money home, you're not going to be able to have that money to send back home anymore. You're not going to have that money. First of all, you're feeling it right now. You're feeling it in your pocket. Look at the last couple of days. Silvergate Bank as well as SVB, Silicon Valley Bank. Those 2 banks just fell last 2 days ago. And why did they fall? Because of a run on the bank. Right? Bank run on, because a lot of the inflation that have been experienced by banks and by everyone has caused the halting of new money and deposit into the bank. So most people are withdrawing their money, and now they fell. Those banks have fallen. Is it going to be a cascading effect? Yes. There's going to be other banks that might fall off. So here in the United States, we're dealing with that. And now think about your purchasing power. Think about the money reserve that you have. Now think about now you have to deal with a country and an administration whose inflation isn't curbing. They're not curbing the inflation. They're not curbing it. And it's getting worse. So you're not going to have that money to send back home. Now, even if you do send that money back home, it's not going to be at the same rate in which you sent it the first time. So you're going to feel it. That's that. You're going to feel it. Okay. Anyway, let me get through here. So here's the security part. The Boko Haram issue is a problem. Okay. The issue with insecurity has also been a significant challenge during the Buhari's presidency, with the country experiencing an upsurge in terrorism, banditry, and kidnapping. Boko Haram, a terrorist group based in northeast of Nigeria, has continued to launch attacks on civilians and military. This is a problem. This is one key problem. And you can read the rest of this stuff. Now I want to spend time on this. That right there is going to be your biggest, on top of everything I've started, it's going to be one of the key biggest problems that a lot of Nigerians in the diaspora are going to face moving forward. Now here's what I mean by that. Nigerians in the diaspora as well as Nigerians over there. Here's what I mean by that. Nigerians in the diaspora that fly and travel back home are no longer going to enjoy the privilege. This is what's going to happen in the next 8 years. They're not going to enjoy the privilege of going home and coming back unchecked. You're going to probably be monitored and have surveillance on you. It's going to happen now, because the country now, and again I say this with the highest humility, right? When you go, this is what you're looking at. When you go and travel to Nigeria now, based on the fact that you've elected a president who has a history of drug trafficking in his past, who is more likely going to continue the policies of the current administration and the outgoing administration, who has probably the same ideology and value system of the current administration, the outgoing administration, that is not going to signal well for the international bodies. They're going to look at Nigeria now in a different lens, and they're going to look at Nigeria as a terrorist breeding country. That is the issue that you're going to face now. That when you see, when I traveled back home the other couple of years ago, this is prior to COVID, I remember a couple of times I would travel back home, and when I'll come back, my bags won't come back with me. And it's something that this is like back 2019 period in time, right? I mean, that's what Nigeria. This is where Nigeria is right now. My bags don't come out with me because they held my bags and they would send my bags home with me after I came back to the United States. Of course, they're probably looking to see if I brought something back, which they were wasting their time. But nonetheless, that's the situation I went through, right? Imagine that now. When you go back and you come back home, you're going to be pulled aside, randomly searched. You're going to be pulled aside, randomly questioned. It's not going to be a good feeling. It's not going to be good. Some of you experienced that today. It's not going to be good. I mean, not to mention that the U.S. passport has an electronic transmitter. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? The U.S. passport. For those of you that are here, the U.S. passport has. Hold on. Let me show you. Hold on. All right. Okay, I want to show you something. Okay, here's my U.S. passport. Okay, now see this right here. See this little thing right here? You guys see it? This is right here. Okay, that is called an electronic transmitter. Okay, it's also in the inside of the passport too. But this stuff right here transmits real time your location. Now, at first, I didn't know what that was. I thought it was just a fancy design. No, it's not. When I went to, I remember when I traveled in 2019, I went to Nigeria and I was coming back. This annoying lady at the airport in Nigeria was taking the British Airways. I can't stand that airline. I really can't. I was taking the British Airways back to Dallas, and I was to London, and I was going to take then I was boarding American Airlines to Dallas, and then okay. She was asking me, "Where were you?" I could swear this lady wanted to make sure I didn't get on this flight. I was like, "What do you mean where I was?" She's like, "Where did you move around?" In Lagos. I was like, "I went to VI." She's like, "Where else?" It's like, "Where else? What are you talking about?" This is a lady at the check. This is a lady at the counter. This is people that's processing your boarding in. I was like, "I went to VI." She's like, "Where else?" It's like, also went to Ikorodu. She's like, "Yes." "Where else?" Ikeja. She's like, "Okay." And she let me in. Now, how did she know that? Because she was looking at the computer the entire time I was talking to her. Because of that. See this right here? Okay. All U.S. passport and all U.S. citizens that hold a passport have that. This is not just people that go to Nigeria. Everyone that holds a U.S. passport has that on their passport. It's an electronic transmitter. It transmits your location in real time. So I bring that up to say, now they're going to be watching that. So for every one of us that go and come back with the Boko Haram insurgency in Nigeria, and that issue that has not been resolved by this current administration, is likely going to be a more problem in the next 8 years. Citizens that go and come back are going to be monitored, scrutinized, probably call to the side and ask questions on just the type of stuff that you don't want to be bothered with. Because you went to visit your loved ones back home, you went in December to go party like you normally will party and all of that. Imagine coming back home. This is what you're going to be looking at now. This is not good, people. This is not good. So when you're voting for a candidate, understand why you voted for him. Understand why you voted for him. Understand what you're looking at. You're looking at an inflation rate that's going to be higher than where it is right now, which is it's 25% right now. I think it's at 20 something, 25%. You're looking at a GDP that isn't going to be growing as faster than that's slow growth based on the population growth. You're looking at the purchasing power, decline purchasing power. So what you were able to buy with $1, right, is less. It's gonna be less than what you were able to buy. It's gonna be less than what you'll be able to buy in the future coming up. You're looking at an insurgency in terms of security and the perception in the world that's worse than this. And this is the part that pisses me off, is that we have our men and women that are out there with Afrobeat, with Nollywood. We have Nigerians in this country and all over the place, really kind of slaying and creating a great impression about the country. You have these happening. And then you have this situation that's going to loom over it. And it's going to cloud over that. It's going to make Nigerians stand out like a sore thumb. And people are going to be looking at them with a funny eye because they have a president that has a sketchy past and is not going to pull the country out. It's going to bring them worse. This is why I'm saying Peter B's fight today. If he loves the country the way he says he does, if he loves the country the way he claims he does, and love his people the way he claims he does, he needs to stop what he's doing right now and stop fighting this thing in the court, because you're not going to win it. You're not. And he needs to take his messaging to the grassroots level. As I mentioned earlier on in this stream, he needs to begin going against war against corruption. Now, this is the issue with that. This is the fundamental issue with that. For you to begin embarking on that would mean that you, as Nigerians, also are tired of corruption. That's the only caveat, because a lot of you benefit from that. A lot of you benefit from corruption. It has been part of your whole fabric for years. You've fed into it. You benefit from that. What is corruption? Corruption says that I'm not going to follow the rules and the law. That's what corruption is. I'm not going to follow the rules and the law. I know that I want to start a business. And the process of starting a business is you fill a form, you pay whatever business fee. There's probably a waiting period. You have to file certain type of document depending on the location. That is the process. Corruption says that I don't want to do all of that. Let me pay these guys off, and bypasses that. Some of you and many of you benefit from that. You've liked the idea of not having to wait in line for anything. Corruption also says I have an exam I want to take. I want to study for the bar exam. I want to study for, WIEC, JAM, whatever the exams are. And you know that you want to get into a particular field. It will require you studying to pass the exam. No. I don't want to do it. I'd rather pay this person off to grant me this result that I want so I can go into the university I want. Many of you benefited from these corrupt practices. That's what corruption is. It's following the rules and following the laws. And the reason why it has existed the way it has existed this many years is because many of you fueled it. Yeah. Many of you fuel it. That's something that in this country, they don't play with. They don't play with that. Corruption is a disease and a poison that eats at the fabric of a country's credibility. So you're going to have to decide what country you want, because many people are upset right now. Corruption stole your election. Yeah, I know INEC is a face, but corruption really stole it. And many of you will have to admit to yourself the role you play on a personal and also on a global level. Have you been that one person that's had to buy somebody off because you don't want to follow the rules? You don't want to go through the proper channel that is set for you to do this. You don't want to do that. Have you been that person? Because if you say yes to that, then you're part of the problem. You can't cry right now and say, oh my God, they stole election from us. Corruption stole election from you. The corruption that you put in place stole it from you. So until you're willing to address that, nothing in your country is going to change. And so Peter Obi right now, with the eyeball and the excitement that he is put in the heart of the youth, has an incredible amount of opportunity right now to rechannel his messaging. His messaging should be fighting against corruption. That should be his message. Even if he spent the remaining part of his life fighting for that, he will go down in history. He will go down in history as he will be the most important person in history to attempt to tackle the corruption. Everyone is going to back you up. Everyone is going to back you up, and you're going to shake the presidential and the power that be in that country. You're going to, because it's going to cause in and out. Every time they go out, every time they have a question, they go to like the G summit, or they go to a UN meeting. Anytime, the question they're going to ask you is like, what do you think about Peter Obi and his fight for corruption? That's the question. And it's going to bother them so much that he will become an icon and a movement that will forever change that country. That is your only play here. That is your only play. But you have to want it. You have to want to fight that fight, because you're not going to find people in this country fight the fight that you're talking about. They don't care about your elections. They don't. They got their own problems. They don't care. Your election is your election. You got to deal with it. However, you're going to get Gen Zs fighting for that, because Gen Zs are social warriors. That's what their whole stance is social warrior. And so Peter Obi will need to move from a presidential candidate to become a social warrior justice, or a social justice warrior. That's the only play here. He's not going to be president of Nigeria. That's not what God has for him. He has an incredible amount of opportunity right now. As much as I would love to see him at the helm, but I like to see him play a different role. I like to see him use the incredible amount of opportunity and the influence that he's been able to garner over the last few years. I like to see him channel that to fight the same cancer that denied him his elections. Because he'll get all the support. He'll get money thrown at him. He'll get funding. He'll get money. He will get support locally and internationally that will shake the whole fabric of that system over there. That's how the apartheid movement fell apart, by the way. That's how South African apartheid movement fell apart. It was based off of the fight that one man started, and it just spilled across the entire globe, that brought that system down. It took years, but he finally brought it down. Right? That's his play. What he's doing right now is a waste of time. All right. This is what's going on out here. All right. So let me see what's going on out here. Let me read some of your comments. Yeah. Yep. And I know that, I agree with that. But so it says right here, the gentleman says, what a letdown. Right? The election in Nigeria, I had such high hopes for that once the giant of Africa was about to do the right thing. Yeah. It is a letdown. It is. And I know that this is
They turned
turn that off. I don't know why people who are looking for change would do that. Now, of course, like I said, your vote is your vote. You vote for whoever you want to vote. But understand that elections have consequences and you have to live with the decision that you've made. Right? And my appeal to Nigerians is that you're going to have to accept the election results as much as it bites and as much as you're grieved by the election result. You're going to have to accept it. I mean, every election has these types of things, has winners and has losers, have people that are excited, have people that, there's always going to be a winner, and there's always going to be people that are election deniers, people that don't accept election. It's what this country is going through right now. You remember what happened with the Trump administration? The same thing, right? And they went to court and he finally lost the election. No, so you're going to have to accept it. You're going to have to fact that a huge part of your citizens sold you out. They sold your country out. They don't want change. They want the status quo. They took the money. They sold out. In addition to INX corruption, because I'm sure they got paid too. So there's people in that country that don't want change. And they want the status quo. And I would love to see the body of people that supported both Showore as well as Peter Obi. These two need to team together. Because I know that they were, naturally, when you run up against one position, you both are going to be, you guys will go against each other. But Showore is going to have to understand that he needs to team up with Peter Obi, and Peter Obi will need to start fighting a different fight, because their supporters are aligned when it comes to the same thing they're looking for. Now, they might have differences in terms of what one brings over the other, but in terms of this, you ever heard the saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend? They're going to have to team up and begin to find a social justice type of fight, because that's what their stands are, and overturn the corruption. Overturn and fight against that. Now, everyone can say, I hate corruption, but you going to do anything about it? You're going to do something about it, because you need to do something, because that's what's eating up at your country is corruption. Nigerians are an incredible amount of people. They have such great strides in the world. They have such great presence in the world. Now, what you don't want is to have that dark cloud over it, where people look at you like, you're from Nigeria, like, ugh. Because they will look at what's going on in your country and they will use that to just mark and label you. And that's not what you want. You want to have your talents from all over the country. You want to have your talents celebrated. You want to have people from your country. Just like the doctors is celebrated in Nigeria. Doctors in this country, 77% of black doctors are Nigerians in this country. 77% of black doctors in the United States are Nigerians. You want that to be celebrated. The global the tech sector, Nigerians fill that whole area. In terms of, and I've said it many times in my program, in terms of earning potential, in terms of highest income earners in this country are Nigerians. And I've talked about this on and on and on. And not to mention now we have the Afrobeat community really breaking barriers. And in Nollywood, it's a whole lot of great things that's coming out of that country. What you don't want, because we live in the United States. The United States is a perception-based environment. It's a perception-based. People, once they perceive you as a certain thing, they just mark you down. And so what's going to cause that for the American people, I guarantee you, is a Boko Haram situation. Now they've dealt with the fact that Nigeria is corrupt for years. And people are like, oh yeah, okay, that's what you come to expect. It's sad, but they've dealt with that. The Boko Haram thing is going to be new. It's going to be once the media takes a hold of that and begin to really hone in on that, because all indication points that this administration is not going to address or attack Boko Haram head on. The one coming in, it's going to be a problem. And once they tag you as a terrorist country, it halts your visa application. It puts a lot of your citizens in surveillance. It halts international trade to your country. It is not a good look. It is not a good look. So when you were voting for the man, I hope you were not voting for this man because you hated the other guy so bad. You voted for someone that had more of your interest and can advance both you and your family as well as the country forward. The one you voted for, I'm sorry, is not the guy. Okay. All right. I've said all my piece. I am going to go ahead and close out this chat because I can't find the gentleman that wanted to. It's not in here. Okay. Anyone else that wants to come up? Because it's you can click on the link and come up if you want to defend your position. Because what this is like the Trump administration thing. This is a silent majority. You have people, and I know that, and it's sad, and I think that people that support my channel, or a lot of people that watch me, I sense there are a lot of Tinubu supporters in my channel. Dude, if you're a Tinubu supporter, please do me a favor and just drop off. Because you're not gonna like what I have to put out from now to then. Because I'm not. If you're a Tinubu supporter on my channel, subscribe. You need to drop off. It's okay. Go ahead and drop off. Because my entire campaign, my entire channel is going to be against his administration. So you're not gonna like what I have to say. So you can watch me from a distance, but you can keep that. Because what you've shown me is that you're not ready for change. You're not. You couldn't be ready for change and you put a man like that in presidency. You can't. And I'm not trying to align myself with anyone who supports that. I'm not. And you're part of the problem. And so I don't really care to have your support. I'm not interested in it. You can jump off. For real. You can jump off. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Hopefully you learned something from this live video. And I'm going to stay on this. Okay, I'm going to stay on this. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay on this. And those who like it will like it. Those who like it, don't worry about it. But I think that I am one that's looking for change in that country. I love my people tremendously well, and I want to see that country change. Many people living in the diaspora they all wish that country to change. They want to change for that country. And because not just for today, but also for the future, for kids, children coming up, want to see a change because it is kind of weird when you have a people like Nigerians who are such great people when they do such great things in the world, and then you don't see that translate in the country. It's kind of weird. So I like to see a change in that country. I like to see something different. And so right now, Peter Obi has my support in terms of that because I like the messaging that he stands for. I like what I heard on the campaign trail. I liked it. I liked it. That whole tagline, I want to move you from consumption to production. That is what's going to get you out of this. That is what it is. And so that type of messaging resonates with me because I think Nigerians, the labor market is the most valuable part of the market, but they need help. They need to be invested into. They need technology. They need a lot of support, resources sent to them to get them working, to get them producing, so you can kind of sell your goods to other country and charge for that and really begin to improve your GDP growth. And if you're not doing that, then you're not ready for change. But anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.